What I'm going to talk about this week is men's equipping men, discipling men. So in us, we took 22 guys down to an Impactus event. Hey guys, we in the back? Sounds good to me.
You want the back or do you want the front?
Oh, the front, back's good, man.
Okay.
Oh. Hey, we're at the hotel.
We can maybe have your card ready to get.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go over here. Get over here. Here's our group just before the things start. What I'm going to talk about this week is men's equipping men, discipling men. So in us, we took 22 guys down to an Impactus. That's the win for me, is 22 guys going down and being able to spend some time together. Friday night, we went down. Here's some pictures, and celebrated. It was one of the guys' birthdays, so we sang happy birthday as loud as we could in the restaurant that we gathered together and just hung out. And my son got to come, which was great, and a number of the other men, their sons came. That was actually one of the, in reflecting on it, one of the unique things was the fact that there was a lot of father-son connections and these young men that came out to this event, and being able to come and hear these speakers and watch other men, listen to their stories, be equipped in areas and challenged in living for Christ. And I think these types of events are important. I'd love to hear what's your thoughts around these kinds of events where you gather together. The event was Impactus, and kind of comes out of the former Promise Keepers movement. They've had a connection here with that group for a while, and so I saw it as an avenue to be able to catalyze or be a catalyst in making disciples. And the group of men that I have leading, one of the great things that we talked about was the need for these wider events like that event, like breakfasts or fishing trips and these larger moments of gathering. But they allow us then to be able to kind of like get the conversations going, gathering some men, help build relationships, because let's face it, most of us men suck at relationships, in the sense of we don't have a lot of good buddies to do life with. And that's where we got to start. But then how do we funnel them into smaller communities? And these leaders are getting some of that. And so we're obviously really early in that, though they planned. This is one part of the beauty is I've been kind of encouraging from the side is they planned everything and got us down there. And I just had to kind of go along and be there. And we have a breakfast coming up. So part of the follow-up of this event is we're going to do a breakfast and we're going to have conversations. There's a list of questions. We want to encourage people, of course, trying to funnel them further in to relationships so that discipleship can be it. Coming out of the weekend, one of the guys that came up who's been searching and coming, really, I think he came to faith a couple of weeks ago or months ago, and it's been journeying, said, hey, I think I need to get baptized. And so we're going to set up a meeting and be able to walk with him and do that. And our process is that I've implemented here is right now it's me they meet with. We go through some stuff, but then as we move into getting baptized, we say, hey, part of the process is for 6 months you have to meet with somebody. Now, if they're part of a group already, I just entrust that group to do that. But there was someone last time I baptized who that was the situation. So they already had the relationships there. And so I'm going to do that with this guy and walk with him, help him grow, and then be able to pass him off, right? That whole discipleship process. I think these events are important. I debated, do I like this event? Because a couple years ago, I actually went to more of a retreat that was at a camp, and it was more about me. I wasn't a leader. Was invited by a friend, had some stuff that God did in my own life there. was very important in my faith journey, and growth in Christ. And I looked at these two events and I said, they serve slightly different purposes, but not fully. They're very similar in what they serve. And I think it just comes down to preference, to what one you would rather have. The goodness was that was one recently was only a day and a half, maybe, well, 2 really. The other was more of a 3-day thing. I don't know what's a value. What's your thoughts around the role of retreats in discipleship and how they can push people forward? I'd love to hear what you've seen work in the area, especially with men. How are you reaching men? What's that look like in your journey? I've been intentional here developing it. We got a small group now started on a smaller community of discipleship on Saturdays, just twice a month. And some of them have said, like, should we be doing this more? And my challenge is the schedules are so full for people. At some point, people have to make a sacrifice to come. They have to say no to other things and come to this, and there's a sacrifice to do it. But it's not overwhelming, and that's the piece I think that's important. I'm going to say for myself, like every week, I might actually have a challenge with that, though I see good things in it. There's a tension for me. What's it look like in your life of doing men's ministry in the midst of the ebbs and flows? The other thing as I reflect on men's ministry is, historically, like, we can do good at social groups. Someone shared even a long time ago, there was a group here of men that used to meet, I think, at 9:30 at night once a week. And he said, it was very formative in his growth. He's gone actually on to be a pastor somewhere else. And we're good friends, and just kind of learning from him, and he's learning from me. It's kind of this neat relationship as we journey together. And he talked about they were really good at the social piece, helping him connect. And for him, because he was on shift work, it was really the only thing he could come to. He said they were good. The social side was huge, and we can't underestimate that. But he said the discipleship side was actually kind of weak. And that wasn't necessarily their intention to be weak in that area. Just it is what it is. And we talked through, like, you need the social piece. You need to be able to just hang out and do life, but you also need to be intentional in the discipleship. Like, it's not a social club, but we also need friends. And I think there's, in the sense of building community, we need both of those. And how does that work out? I continue to wrestle with that and what that means in the midst of my own journey of making disciples. But coming out of the weekend, I was like, man, like, could you imagine, like, up in my area, like, what if we reached 100 men for Jesus and discipled these men? We got 22, so, like, that's who I'm going to pour into right now, and we're going to work on those men and helping them grow, and ultimately being able to move into making disciples and make disciples. That is enough. It's probably more than enough to be able to really see a movement begin. Now we got to help them catch that and be able to grow in the midst and see their role in that. I get that. So our next steps with those guys is 2-1. We're going to invite them to a small group. We're going to invite them to the breakfast. We're going to challenge them. I want to share a little bit here in the video of some of their takeaways. And so let's bring that up right now as you hear from what their takeaways was from the concert.
And what is your biggest takeaway from this event?
Oh, you get to know Jesus more.
To invest more time and be more intentional and honest with my non-believing friends.
How to share your faith with your neighbors just by being friends and getting to know them a little bit better.
That Christ be magnified on the altar of my life.
That God is giving me more foundation in coming to this event.
Just helping, getting more involved with community in the church and helping those who are in need in the kingdom community.
You come here and you realize how many people are all in the same room as you, all here for the same thing.
Understanding more about God, spending more time with God, men coming together to worship God, and it's a very good thing which needs to happen more and more.
Never lean on your own understanding, trust this process.
Everything is a battle in the mind, and for us to conquer Satan and the games that he plays with us, it's all mind games. We need to defeat him that way. That's the big takeaway that I take.
That God's love is endless.
Everyone here through all walks of life, that we're all here for each other, and all as believers that we can encourage each other.
Identify and resist temptations and be trigger diggers. Figure out those triggers, dig them up, and unroot them, get them going. God bless you.
encountering God's great call. He transforms us and He changes us and He gives us the power to live how He wants us to be.
That our struggles are shared and they're not just our own. There's a lot more people going through the same things with the same results as we are, and we're all in it together.
It's always a great experience when a bunch of men can get together and praise God. And it's a lot of power when men get together and uplift the name of the Lord.
I'm excited about what God's going to do in the life of our men at Lakeshore and what it looks like moving forward.
So the importance of community. I've got a lot of self-reflection I need to do.
Being better equipped to meet the challenge.
So some things coming up that I'm working on. Our November 16th event that I have is this discipleship. We're probably at 50 or 60 people right now that are potentially coming. And so hoping to do that. I'm working on Christmas stuff, trying to get that finalized. We're going to work through First Thessalonians on the sermon side. And then we have a Bible reading plan to help people engage over the holidays. And a few activities. We're going to do a big push for inviting people for our Christmas Eve service. Again, seeing the Christmas Eve service as this funnel to bring people together to be able to push them into smaller communities. There is a unique thing. I don't know what Christmas Eve is like in your area. There's some challenge for us on like who's around to like lead different things. And then I added 2 services, so that stressed a few people out. But I want to try to reach more people with that. And so working through that. I think the there's 2 last things I want to talk about. One is one of the areas that God is leading up to this, and even in this moment as I reflect, I do journaling, is this continued hand to our push from the Spirit to spend more and more time in prayer. I get overwhelmed by the needs of people at moments and the maybe all the things that could be done. And recognizing prayer is something I can do. And prayer has to be foundational in the midst of making disciples. And there's so much that could be said around this, around the role of prayer in making disciples. And it's an area that I know God is constantly pushing me, Bayerny, spend more time in prayer. And so I'm trying to develop that. Tomorrow's the first Wednesday of the month, and I'm going to be spending extra time in prayer as I continue to lead the church. And part of it is if I'm going to call them to prayer, I need to be doing it. And so I'm just recognizing in my own life, that's an area of growth that I'm working on. And you know, like the thing is, we're seeing things happen. And when I spend that time, when I call people to prayer, things are moving. And so I'm seeing some actions. Man, there's lots of challenges, trust me. But I have to cast those worries to the Lord, and I have to leave the outcomes of some of these things to the God. It's not me about. I can't control everything. And man, we try to. Nor can I take my identity from the success or the failures, because the reality is of discipleship, you're going to fail a lot, or at least what seems to be failure. And I have some of those of people just aren't going to show up to things. So in the midst of the failures that we experience, it should draw us back to Lord. In the midst of the successes, it should draw us back to the Lord as well. But this is also not all on my shoulders. It's a team effort, and don't forget the image of the body of Christ. And it takes all of us. I was reminded of that before I get to my second thing. Is this morning I watched, sadly, a report from a church where the leader had a moral failure, and what seems to be a whole ton of lying and just outright un-Christ-like character in some moments. And I'm not involved in the situation. I don't even know all the details, except my heart hurts because I've seen this happen a number of times. And one of the things that stuck out for me was they recognized that there was too much focus on the one person. They leaned too heavily on the pastor. And there was too much consolidating of power. And I was just reminded I need to be careful of that. But we've made systems that aren't helping us. And as I'm starting to evaluate, how do we make disciples? It's really, part of that is this push to decentralize, equipping people who equip people. And it's not dependent upon one person. But the big one, which I'm just going to point out, is the need for team and constantly raising up leaders. And how do we decentralize some of this, not to be dependent upon one? Now, there's a whole bunch more I could talk around this, because my heart hurts when I see these big names, to be honest, fall. And then some of the deception that takes place during or comes out or even after. And I just like, are we not following Jesus? So anyways, I'm going to get off that because that'll be a long soapbox moment. But the last thing I wanted to share was I was reading this morning this book called 48 Laws. If you haven't got this, it's called 48 Laws of Spiritual Power by Frank Viola. It's like short chapters. I really would encourage you, especially if you're in ministry. You don't have to be in ministry to read that. But today's stuck out for me, and I'm gonna wrap up with that today to leave with you. And the one law talks about being. It says be a reservoir, not a canal. And the concept is this idea that canals are constantly moving. And it reminds me of, after coming off a weekend of really busy, like we're in a busy time as a church. There's a lot of activities going on and things to do, and I can't do it all. But I need to be careful I need to build a reservoir in my life. I can't be a canal, which is constant movement. I have to out of the overflow of what God is doing in my life, serve. It's as I am filled up, I am restored, I am strengthened, that the fruit actually comes out. I'm able to produce fruit. And so if I'm giving and pushing, I need to make sure there's rhythms in my life of where I'm filling up. And what's that look like? And I'm really wrestling with that. And it's hard because like there's moments where you'll serve in ministry, you'll be with people, you'll be investing in people, and you get tired from that. And then you can go home to your family and you're tired, but you're not off. You're still on. And this is everybody faces this. So how do you walk in the midst of that? And one of the things I wrote down in my journal was there is a tension there for me, but my family needs me too. So I'm going to be there for them. I can't just goof off. But there's a ritual I try to do before going in the house. Sometimes I do it. Sometimes I don't. But just being able to pray and say, okay, Lord, help me as I come into the midst of my needs of my family. And please hear me. I don't do that all the time. I wish I did, but I don't. And then I go, man, I need to do this more. And so I kind of go through this up and down movement with it. But then also recognizing, if I'm home that night, is being able to, instead of flipping the TV on, like just shut that stuff down, turn maybe some music on and go to the scriptures and fill my reservoir. And so I'm constantly, more than I ever have in my life. Constant might be a wrong word. It makes it sound like I'm doing it all the time, and I don't, like every minute of the day, I don't know. But definitely weekly, I'm wrestling with managing my energy levels. I think I'm very aware of how do I manage the energy levels as I decide what tasks I need to do and where I need to be. And so all that to say is being reminded in this reflection that he gives of at nighttime, like spend some time in scripture, spend some time journaling, not to teach somebody, not to prep for a sermon, but for my soul and my own life. And that's where there's things in here I'm going to use in the ministry, but this is about my soul. And that's kind of, I've already read it once. I'm rereading it. I felt the need to do that and going back through that. But what's that look like in your life? How do you restore your own soul? How do you be still and know God? Man, this is, in the journey, I am seeing this is huge. How do I, as John 15 says, stay connected to the vine? I can use another part. The reservoir resembles the fountain that runs to form a stream or spreads to form a pool only when its own waters are brimming over. The reservoir is not ashamed to be no more lavish than the spring that fills it. When he, Jesus, had first filled up the secret places, his teeming mercies billowed over. They poured upon the earth and drenched it. To multiply its riches, you must imitate this process. And then he quotes 2 Timothy 2, verse 6. The version he quotes is BLB. Sorry, I don't know what that is, but I'll just share it anyways. It is necessary for the hardworking farmer first to partake of the fruits. There's lots more in here. I don't want to give it all away. I just encourage you to share that. And that's on a personal level in the midst of the journey. In the midst of giving out through the men's ministry, I was just reminded of, okay, how am I going to restore my own faith and my own walk with Christ? What's that look like? And as I start to serve more people, I need to do that in my life. What's that look like in your life? Building the reservoir so that you can serve others. Because whether you're a pastor or another leader or whatever title you use, Jesus follower is probably the best. As a Jesus follower, what are you using to restore the reservoir in your life so that you can live in the things that God has called you to live in? Hey, go make disciples. Love to connect. Share down below some of the answers to those questions I raised up. I'd love to learn from your experience. So please share. And talk to you later. Go make disciples.